I'm going to officially call this meeting to order. If you would all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you for coming to the meeting tonight and braving the weather and the crowded parking lot while the school has conferences this evening. So board members, have you had a chance to take a look at the agenda? To my knowledge, there haven't been any changes or additions. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the agenda.
And I'll second it.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say no. Hearing none, the agenda has been adopted. Now we'll go over to Superintendent Jesse for his report.
Thank you, Board President Davidson, other board directors, student representatives, staff, and families and community members. We're 7 weeks in. 7 weeks already. And lots of really good things going on. I've been out at all 8 schools, in and out of classrooms. I've seen a lot of work around building relationships. You can just tell that students are leaning in and like sharing more about themselves, and staff are really trying to pull it out of them to know their story, strength, and need. Got a lot of routines going on, and we're still working on those. Never enough tightening up to know what the expectations are. Been empowering student voices, so I know that I've seen a lot of projects out there where students are expressing themselves, really trying to work on that engagement with our students. Because if we're providing wonderful, powerful instruction, it doesn't do any good if the students aren't engaged in it. So that's one area that I think we have a special, like a tie-in on the 8 schools, just keep working on that engagement with our students. Because when they're engaged, you can just feel it in the room, and staff feel more energized too. So just how it goes. We did last week kick off our work. We are redoing the backdrop for Shelton High School graduation. So the big wooden panel that is being held by wooden pegs can no longer be considered safe. So we are working with a community group and some staff and students to come up with a way of replacing the backdrop. Of course, I just want to reemphasize, it'll be a lot of nods to the history and the things and the high climber. So we're not just disbanding everything, but it is a way to bring in a more contemporary way of using media to represent all the great history we have here in our community, and also showcase students, and then just provide some heart as we kick off graduation ceremony. So more to come, but I just wanted to let people know that's going on, and so some fun things. This last month was National Hispanic Heritage Month. We have that. We are enriched by our amazing diversity here in Mason County, and one of the things we're trying to do to better connect with our families where maybe English is not the first language is that we are having a new way of communicating newsletters. So we're standardizing our newsletters across all 8 schools and using them for the district. That'll benefit all our families. One of the nice things about it is it makes translation a lot easier. So with that, so one of our important things. And my last part is just gratitude. Today I'm just bringing a lot of gratitude. I hope people realize, October can be a really tough month in this field, K-12 education. It's a grind. October's long. You kind of realize like you got it, what you have in front of you, and you got to work on it, and you have set high goals for yourself and for your students. And sometimes you just have to say, you know what? I'm really grateful to have this opportunity to be with these people, to be in community, and knowing that really great things are going to happen this year for them and for us. So I'm just really grateful for everyone out there, and especially, again, our students and our educators who are working really hard right now. So I'll hand it back to you.
All right, thank you for your report. All right, next up, we do have community comments, and I've got one person who has signed up tonight, so I am going to read our regular community comment language. As part of the regular school board meeting, the board invites community members to make public comments in person and/or by phone as conditions allow. If speaking in person, please follow the public comment procedure by signing in and stating your name and address at the podium when called by the board chair. If making comments by phone, please dial 1-253-215-8782 and enter meeting ID number 872-5618-1978. Each person is allowed 3 minutes to speak. In accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act, the board is not allowed to discuss items that are not on the agenda. The board will direct the superintendent to follow up on any items that arise during public comment as appropriate. The board cautions all speakers that it is possible that your statements could violate the rights of others under various laws, including laws protecting privacy and laws prohibiting defamation. If you are unsure of the legal effect of your remarks, you should seek independent legal advice. In any case, we ask that you help us model for our students what a respectful and inclusive community looks and sounds like. And the first person I have up is Shyler Rad.
Squeak, squeak, squeak. I'm Dr. Shyler Rad. I live here in Shelton in the 3rd District. I wanted to comment on test scores because at the last school board meeting there was a bit of discussion on test scores. I wanted to add my perspective. It seemed like there were 3 types of comments. First, there were people who saw test scores and they want to set goals to have some sort of growth. And then there were people who saw test scores and they wanted to judge the leadership for doing some sort of good or bad job. But I did notice 1 or 2 other comments of a different type, and that is to ask, are the test scores even valid? Now, test score validity is something that's very important, I think. And I wanted to point to the example from Director Carla. She had pointed out this potential relationship between test scores and the number of ELL students in the district. I think that's a great example of providing or thinking of an alternative explanation to test scores, not just saying, oh, test scores are what they say they are. I thought it was a great example of this sort of asking if test scores are valid. It's a great example of scientific thinking. And I urge the board to follow that example and think of alternative explanations for test scores and always use scientific thinking. There was also something at the last school board meeting just kind of touched my heart. One of the commenters said something, so I wanted to offer now a benediction. Let us honor the source of wisdom by remembering the exhortation, love your neighbor. So be it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Are there any comments coming through online? Nope, okay. And if there's no other public comments here, then that closes out our comment portion of the evening, and we'll go into reports and recognition. First up is always our student reports. So if Aiden Underberg, if you have a report for Cedar, we would love to hear it.
Hello. We have stamp testing this upcoming Thursday. It is our conference week, and about our Halloween trail that I mentioned a few meetings back, it's going to be open to the public. It's going to be on the 30th, but we are still finding a time that would work. But once we do find a time, it'll be on the Cedar High School Facebook page. So keep looking at that. Last Wednesday, we had Matthew Wielander come to our school and talk about what it's like to be a firefighter, so that was pretty cool. Our composting system at Callahan Community Garden is officially finished, and that's all I got.
Aiden, did you say where that Halloween thing might be taking place? Do you know the location yet, or is that to be determined?
It's going to be behind the campus on the trail in like the mountain area.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. All right, Riley Sanders.
Hi, we hosted ASB elections on the 13th and they went great. We filled all the positions. We had a lot of people that were running for it. We also hosted a Fright Night for students that earned academic awards and didn't have any disciplinary actions. We have Spirit Week next week, and this week is our conference week.
All right, great. Thank you both so much for your reports. We always enjoy hearing from you. All right, next up, we go to another school improvement plan. We've got item 5.02, which is Oakland Bay Junior High's school improvement plan with Marianne Marshall and Principal Teresa Mayer.
President Davidson, directors, and student leaders. I'm from Oakland Bay Junior High, Teresa Mayer, and I'm going to share our school improvement plan. Oh, does it work? Okay, so we're going to start by revisiting the two goals from last year. So the first one was exclusions. So the year prior, there were 255 exclusions, so our goal was to cut that in half to 125, and we came out at 91. So our second goal was on test scores. So the SBA ELA 7th grade scores, we were shooting for 36% meeting standard, and we came in at 29.6. So our goals this year are very similar. So the first one is 7th grade ELA SBA scores from 29.6 to 40%, demonstrating a level 3 or higher. So we're being ambitious. We didn't meet it last year. Now we're jumping higher because the cohort of 7th graders this year worked under the new model last year as 6th graders, and so this is their second year under the new strategies. So we are hoping that there's going to be a significant bump because it'll be their second year. It's my teacher's first year, but the kids have been doing it for a year, so we're hoping that that's going to play out. Okay, so the teachers, the ELA teachers are using the Just Right book strategy to get kids into books. And they're teaching kids how to build stamina and how to engage with different genres, which was a missing piece for us. And then how to discuss the text that they're reading with their peers and with their teachers, it's another new piece for us. The whole building is working on creating a culture of literacy. And then the whole building, or all the teachers, are also using sentence frames and sentence starters to help the kids access the learning and be able to discuss it with their peers. So we are using formative data to work on to determine student growth, and then analyzing the data and putting supports in for kids who aren't meeting standard, and then extensions in for kids who are meeting standard. So we're trying to get both ends just moving up. And then our lab teacher is collaborating with our ELA teachers and our multilingual teachers to provide data on the students that he sees who are also in our ELA classes. So they get a double dip. So here's a picture. On the left is a 7th grade classroom. That's Mr. Smith. He's one of our new teachers. And then the books in the middle, those are the books read in Miss Yantis's class in September. And then the picture on the far right is a sample of the inventory that each classroom has for the kids to choose from. So there's tons of books in every classroom. You want to be the clicker? Okay, it's the down one. Okay, so our second goal is around exclusions again. So we hit 91 last year, so we're hoping to reduce that by 33% and get to 60 or less. So that's our goal. We've only had one so far, so we're right on track. We are clearly articulating and engaging kids in discussions around the building expectations, so we're not just telling them what they are, but we're actually trying to have discussions about why they're important and why we need to have them. We're periodically reviewing them and using building-wide strategies to correct behavior. All the teachers are working on de-escalation and problem-solving skills with the kids, especially during advisory. And then, of course, trying to build a community within their classroom that's inclusive. So we are sharing the goal and the data every 6 weeks with our kids. And then looking at our SWIS data, our referral data, the PBIS team is identifying problem spaces, problem like times. Is it always at 10 o'clock in the morning when kids are getting in trouble? And just trying to identify those areas and places and the behaviors to really try and do some proactive things to extinguish that. We talk a lot about self-management skills with the kids and the parents, and then we are working on professional development, which helps our classrooms, but it also helps with behavior by including student voice and student choice in the classrooms instead of all teacher-directed, and then trying to move to a more student-centered classroom rather than teacher-centered. And then here's some pictures of OBJ. So those are our counselors, and they are tier 1 for our culture. And then down on the left is engineering, some of the girls who turned out for cheerleading. And then in the kind of the middle there on the right is our school-wide expectations, and those are in all the classrooms and around the commons and the gym. And then some of the kids who ran cross-country, and then Carter Garcia reading to some kindergartners at Bordeaux. So our leadership classes going down every other Friday and reading to the little ones. That's it. Do you have any questions?
All right, thank you. Board members, do you have questions or any comments? Feel free to jump in if somebody does.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to say thank you for working with a very challenging age group. I think it's probably that transitional years that we all know are very hard. So congratulations for taking that on for your career. I want to talk about the Lexile numbers and books. We visited one of the classrooms. Very exciting to see all the books, posters up. And on each back of each book, it identifies what level of reading it is. Yeah. So how do students know their Lexile score? Do you do some kind of assessment?
Yes, so we use the MAP test, MAP, Measure of Academic Progress. Mm-hmm. And so we did that in early September, the second week, the 12th through the 14th actually. And so we got everybody's Lexile score off that. But then in addition to that, the teacher is conferring with each student to make sure that the book is a good fit, because as we know, testing is almost always correct, but you know, there's still that leeway. So the teachers are conferring and making sure that the kids are in a good fit book. And we started some visiting book bins. So they have a lot of Spanish books in them and lower level books and, you know, other things of interest, and we're calling those the visiting book bins. And those are traveling through the classroom, so our special ed kids have access, you know, so all of our kids can find something.
That sounds great. I think we need the variety of books and different levels. So while I was visiting, I saw the poster of expectations. I think that's a wonderful thing to have it so everybody's on board. Are you doing other things to promote that? Do you have assemblies or Can you explain what else you're doing to promote that?
Yeah, so we have 3 art tickets, which there was a little picture of it on there, but that we give to the kids for meeting expectations, and then they can go to the store and buy something with their tickets. Or each teacher has a list of items and how many tickets it costs to sit in their favorite chair, or a fancy swivel chair costs 10 tickets, that kind of stuff. So the teachers are all doing that. We have about every 6 weeks, because we've already done it. So kids with no tardies, they get a celebration during advisory. We have assemblies every trimester. There is a lot going on. Yeah, there's a reading challenge, donuts and juice, and yeah.
Well, let's talk about the students who are not meeting the expectations. And what are some of the serious behaviors that you might enter into the Swiss program? What are some of the behaviors that you're noting?
Right now, it's a lot of just picking on other kids. So kids just picking on them. We haven't had any high-level, fights or weapons or anything like that in the building. It's just a lot of kids poking at other kids. And it's hard at this age to know if they want their attention or, they just don't know how to express themselves and say, hi, I want to get to know you, or if they're just poking to be naughty, to be mean. Yeah.
Okay. So what about disrespect to teachers? Where does that fall, and what are you doing to curb that?
Yeah, we actually have had very, very little of that this year. I can only think of a few instances. Last year we had more. We have worked very hard on showing the kids what is respectful, what isn't respectful, if they have a problem, how to say, hey, I'm not, I don't agree with this, or I would rather not do that, or is there another choice I can have? So we've been working a lot on problem solving with the kids and how to express their feelings without being disrespectful.
And going back to the poster of expectations, did students have input on that?
They did. They had a lot of input on that. You can see we have hoods down but hats on. So yes, they wanted to wear hats. That was very important for a lot of kids. At our age group, they, especially the boys, will get haircuts. And their parent, they'll grow it out, like as long as mine. And then all of a sudden the parent will go, oh, no, we're done with that. Or wrestling's starting, or basketball's starting. You need a haircut. And then they'll get a really short haircut, and the boys all want to wear hats. So that was one of theirs. Another one you didn't notice was gum, because it's not on there. The kids love their gum, and they want to chew their gum. So we left that up to individual teachers. So that was another one of theirs.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Have you looked under the tables yet to see how that's working?
We have, and we've also found it in the carpet a little bit. So then on announcements, it's, okay, you guys, the custodians are complaining about gum in the carpet. We might have to pare this back. So.
Well, thank you for your presentation, and good luck.
Thank you.
Are there other questions from any board members at this time?
I just got a couple kind of global. So as there's fewer behavior problems, things like that, would you say the atmosphere at the school just anecdotally is becoming a better place to hang out and be?
Yes, absolutely.
And
yeah, it's actually calm.
Cool.
It feels calm, and I'm not like, last year I was like on edge all the time because something was going to blow up. But we're not having that. It's very calm and predictable, and the kids are following the routines and the expectations, and my health has greatly improved.
Good.
Yeah.
And then with kids being able to talk about the books afterwards, are you finding, and I hope I know the answer to this, but that there's certain books that are really taken off that everybody wants to read and they're just constantly being checked out?
Yes, there are definitely those books and those series and it travels in friend groups, you know, and the friend group, somebody in the friend group will get a hold of it and tell the friends, and then other friends all want them, and then, you know, and if the teacher holds one up and says, hey, this is a great book if you like, you know, hunting and fishing and camping, and, you know, and that one will start going. Yeah, it's been exciting to see.
Good. And as far as the hat thing goes, it just prevents sunburn. It really does.
I want to thank you both for the report too, and it was nice. I went on a tour with the superintendent and Carla, and we were able to talk at length to Mrs. Yantis, who was actually talking very positively about what she was doing, and even feeling hesitant about some of the literacy things, but then being surprised that her class was choosing a bunch of biographies on their own and really getting into them. So that was nice to hear from the teacher. And then we also went into Mr. Smith's classroom, did see the poster. He was talking very excitedly about things and showed us a lot of the book bins and the books. So it was nice to see. And having just previously had a child there who's not there anymore, just walking into the school, there is a noticeable difference in just the general climate. There really was. So I'm glad to hear that that's the case, and to see that. One question that I had, because you had mentioned, you know, that the different strategies are working better. What are some of the good strategies when it comes to behavior that are working? If you can name or kind of give us an example of one of those.
Well, we're trying to be real proactive and know that this age group and how, you know, how they respond. So a specific example, a lot of front loading. So do you remember the day when they tested the emergency response system and all of our phones went off at 11:20? So we had a lunch, right, 11:05 to 11:35. So 200 of our kids were at lunch. But I got on the intercom at 8 o'clock and said, oh, you know there's going to be this emergency thing today, and all your phones are going to go off. And even if you have it on silent, your phone's going to go off, and talked them through that. And then right before it went off, I got on the intercom again and said, oh, you know what? The alarms are all going to go off on our phones. Nobody needs to scream. Nobody needs to be hysterical over it. We all know, and it's going to happen to every one of us. And so, and it happened, and it was like nothing happened. It was just as calm as could be. They're like, oh, there it is, and they just hit their phone. So it was great. Yeah.
Yeah, not as disruptive as it could have been.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm learning as I go. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we all are. Are there any other questions or comments, Sandy or Lauren? Sorry, Riley. You can go after Lauren if that's all right.
I'm glad to hear you're having a good year so far. I'm impressed with your reduced exclusionary actions, and that number just keeps going down, which is great. So thank you for your work on that. And I really liked how you said you're sharing goals with students every 6 weeks. I think it's really great to engage them and remind them and like have them actively participating in making the environment in the school better. So, but thank you for your presentation.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I had a question about your expectations. I was wondering if having the kids keep their bags in the lockers was actually helping the situation.
Yeah, it does help, and the kids do keep them in their lockers, and it does really help. It helps, you know, that they're not swinging them around into other kids in the halls. It helps that, you know, everything is locked away and safe behind a lock, and they just carry their binders.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions or comments? No? All right, thank you both very much.
Thank you.
All right, up next, we have item 5.03, which is Olympic Middle School's School Improvement Plan. And Marianne will stay up there along with Principal Mary Johnson.
All right. Good evening, Board President Davidson, directors, and our student representatives. Thank you for this time to share kind of just a brief glimpse into the work that our students and staff are doing at Olympic Middle School this year. Our first goal is around literacy, so it aligns with our strategic plan. And our goal is that our students meeting standard on the state assessment will increase from 29% last spring to 35% this spring. We've also identified a subgroup of students. So we have 14 students that we've identified who are targeted multilingual, who are just below meeting standard. And so we're really heavily focused on that group to get them up and over the line. The systems and structures that we're working on in our building, our teachers meet weekly, I should say daily, in the interdisciplinary teams, which is great for them to be talking about students and focusing on their groups of students. And then they meet on PLC Wednesdays and every other Thursday in their content levels, where they can then work with their ELA teachers, the math teachers and the science teachers. So we're looking really deeply into how are our units aligned, both in ELA and in our other content areas, and using data kind of of a tool. Like we use our data points, but then we're talking a lot about the observational data that we're collecting through conferring with students, the running records work that we just did, to make sure that we're making those differentiated pieces into our instruction to make sure we're meeting everybody's needs. We also have built some teams very strategically. So we have a team of teachers who focus a lot on our targeted LAP students. So we strategically place students on that team and support to work there. And we did the same thing with our multilingual students so that we could really narrow in our services and make sure that we were really targeting students in the ways that they needed to be targeted. And then our instructional leadership team has taken a really different lens this year. So it's our MTSS team, and we spend the majority of our meetings looking at our data and using it to help us determine what PD we might need to do, how we're going to use and spend our resources, and any other needs that we might have in our building. So the strategies that we identified, this is the second year for literacy work at Olympic Middle School. We do have 11 new teachers. So we do have some teachers who have come into the building, so we're working on bringing some of them up to speed. But we are working at entry tasks when students come into the classroom. We just want to make sure that first thing in the morning we're greeting them, but that also when they come in, there's no downtime. There's something related to either something they learned the day before or perhaps kind of a pre-knowledge of what we're going to be talking about that day, so they have something to be thinking about and something to be talking to their friends about in class. We are also using sentence frames and sentence stems to help our students. The other day I had the opportunity to go in and teach for 30 minutes in a 6th grade ELA class. And it was really interesting. There had been a substitute in there who had to leave early. And the students were given a quick write around what they were supposed to do, just something that they were thinking that they might want to do when they grow up. And I could tell that they were really confused. Those that knew what to do were doing it, and those that weren't. So together we quickly brainstormed some ideas, and then together we created some sentence stems of how they could help kind of almost fill in the blank. And by the end of that 30 minutes, everybody had at least 2 to 3 sentences written down, so it was really exciting to see them. Administering running records. So this is our F&P. This has been just a huge undertaking, and I'm pleased to say that other than about 2 children, maybe, we've tested all 590 students in our building. Our teachers just rocked it. The district stepped up and helped us. We were able to get teachers a substitute for each day because as ELA teachers, they had twice the number of students. And while it was daunting, I will tell you the information back from our teachers about what they gained has been so valuable in that time that they took. And then, most excitingly, we're starting our academy time. So academy is when we're going to be focusing on what we call word study, that, the big 5 of reading. When are we going to go in there and really look at what our students need? So our academy time starts. It's about 25 minutes by the time they actually get there, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. So these are some photos of some of the things that you'll see going on in our classrooms. In the bottom corner, you'll see Mrs. Guzman. She's down there, and she's actually administering running records to 2 students at the same time. So one student, she's listening to them read, while the other student is reading the passage on so that they can come back to her and ask questions. She can ask them questions about what they read. In the bottom middle is one of our new science teachers, and he was doing a science lesson, and I have to say I went back twice that day to watch this lesson. It was so engaging. The kids just couldn't believe what was going on, and they were responding in their journals. Some of the sentence frames or the prompts, so you come into the classroom, so what is your biggest fear and why? So that was a prompt for one of our writers' workshops. Kids came right in, and they were able to do a quick write right away. And then just real quickly, Academy Time. We are really excited about this. So we did a lot of PD at the Summer Summit with our 5th and 6th grade teachers around what is word study? What does that really mean? Because if you've been a 5th and 6th grade teacher, you didn't really get that good reading, foundational reading PD or classes when you were in college. So we did a lot of work around that, and we gave an assessment. It's called the ESI. It is the Elementary Spelling Inventory. And really talked to the teachers about why is giving a spelling inventory important for reading. It was really great to have some good conversations about how phonological awareness needs to transfer over to orthographics so that you can read and write. So we gave those assessments, we scored those assessments, and we put them in this wonderful spreadsheet you see up here, and through that we were able to identify students who were at the emergent level, students who really were struggling readers. So 6th grade, for example, had 16 students that were struggling, really emergent struggling readers, and many of them were multilingual and students who are receiving special education services. So through that, we built in these classes. So we have emergence and our letter naming alphabetics. They're doing very discrete phonological awareness strategies, using some curriculum that we have called System 44, not using the program, using the materials. And then students from then on up are going to be doing a program called Words Their Way. It's a wonderful word sort program. It goes all the way up to high school. So whether a child is just at grade level or excelling, they will get what they need during that time. And then I just gave you a quick example of when it happens in what we call our 4th period block. So there's homeroom, lunch, and then academy, or maybe you have homeroom, academy, and lunch, and that's when the time will happen. And then these are just some students. We did start our academies with some of our students that needed, that were receiving special education or multilingual. And then our second goal is aligned with Initiative 4, so right around safe and welcoming environments. If we make them safe and welcoming, kids will be at school. So we are looking at decreasing our out of school, or I should say, our exclusionary events from 46 to 35 this year. We also made a really good adjustment last year. We also identified 2 subgroups. So we have a group of Native American students. We want to decrease it from 4% to 2%. Even though it's small, it's still a large population. And then the rate of our EL students to decrease from 29 to 19%. And the interesting thing about that piece of data, it seems like a big piece of data, it's about 10 kids. So when you really look at the data and realize what we're looking at, we need to, we've got some kids that we're really going to target. We look at Swiss data like everybody else. We actually put it into our weekly bulletin at least every other week, so our teachers are being able to see the data that is occurring. We look at our data to decide, is it a problem of practice? Is it a systems issue? Or is it a specific student issue? So we've had a couple of systems issues, and we've done some very slight tweaking. So the systems at Olympic Middle School were already in place. I was very lucky when I came in. And there were just a few little things. So for example, we have found that behavior in the 6th grade hallway outside the bathroom is problematic. So we went in and we have tweaked our systems to move towards hall passes, bathroom passes. Everybody must have a pass in order to be in the hallway, and that allows us to monitor who is in and how many students are in the bathroom. So little systems, little tweaks, we hope to get big outcomes. When students have more than 3 referrals, so we're really tracking that data and saying, okay, we've done the restorative meeting, we've done some things, what more might we need to do? We met with a lot of parents. We've had amazing parent response. They come to the table and they're like, what can we do to help? Tell us. We're looking at some behavior plans, some pairing them up with a caring adult, doing some check-in and check-out, and then moving into more specific skill instruction for those students who might need a little help in that area. And then we also are doing I guess I should go on to the next slide, I apologize. And then things that we're also doing, so PBIS, we've been doing that for a while at Olympic Middle School, and so we do have some really good structures and routines in place. Every year, kids come in, we do look at our common expectations because we want student voice in them as well. So we do make some adjustments based on what we see. We look at that information. We have our Tier 2 and Tier 3 and our Tier 1 team, we meet every week. So every other week is one of those. So one time we're looking again at the whole system, and then the next week we're looking a little more narrow at where are some of the challenges and what can we do to help our students. Our teachers are out greeting kids at the door. We have staff in the hallway. I don't think a child can get down the hall to their locker with seeing less than 8 adults. It's just, we're glad you're here. And we also have kids going right to class when they come in, and it has made a huge difference in how settled the kids are when they arrive. Taking time to get to know our students is extremely important, and during homeroom or in the middle of the day, we're teaching second steps 2 days a week, and we're doing class meetings 2 times a week. So here are some pictures of some of that work being done. All right. We had some challenges. We have been doing every PLC, we have been doing either a grade level or a team or an all grade level assembly. And we've been trying to do a lot of team activities. So the kids are volunteering to do fun things. So you'll see we have tug of war up there in the top corner. We've done a lot of activities. Down here in the bottom corner is a circle getting to know you kind of activities. Teachers are taking their students out often to just have time for them to build relationships and get to know each other. There you'll see an example of a class meeting agreement. So teachers were individually doing those with their classrooms, and the kids were coming up with agreements of what they would do. We have our common expectation matrix, and if you were to click on each of those links, there is a PowerPoint and videos that walk the kids through what some of those expectations are, and the students are in those videos, which is really cool. And then just some other things that we've done. We've done some really great stuff. We decided to have a little fundraiser because we want to get some playground equipment. We were hoping to maybe sell a few candy bars and get about $10,000, and we've sold about $33,000 worth of chocolate. Our kids know how to sell. It's amazing. Our intramurals are going great. We do a lot of work around restorative practices, and you know, we're 7 weeks in now, and we're all starting to really figure it out together, which is great. Thank you. Any questions?
All right, thank you. Are there board members that might like to start with some questions?
No, you go first. I ask what's left over.
Very nice presentation. It's, again, a challenging age, and I'm glad that you have so many support systems set up. Going back to the reading, I was looking up running records when I saw you mention that. Do you have set pieces for their Lexile that you give them? Or, because I also read that some teachers will go to the book, take a copy of a page of a book, and that seems very timely to do that. So tell me about how they get the running record script.
Absolutely. First year, I think, is always going to be the challenging year because you're starting at square one. You don't have that information on students. So we did very similar to Oakland Bay. We used our MAP Lexile score, and our teachers quickly discovered that if you took that Lexile score and we looked at the F&P, the A through Z where it ranked them, and went down 3 levels, we were almost right on. But it took us, a few assessments. But pretty soon they're talking. And they're like, I went down 3 and it really seemed to work. So that helped us, or helped the teachers to not have to give an assessment and then back up and give another assessment. So once we made that discovery, probably like day 2, and got that news out, that really helped our teachers with that. We did prep all the materials ahead of time, so when they got their kits, I had gone through and created them all, so the materials were there for them. And they were able to just print them from their computer as opposed to having to go down to the Xerox machine if they did need to go to a different level. So, I mean, like anytime you're learning something new, it's difficult because, you're just not sure what you're doing. So we said, start in the middle. Don't start with those really fast readers. Okay, you'll never keep up. And don't go to those really low readers. They're a little bit harder also to know how to mark. So start kind of in that middle ground and build some confidence around yourself. And that's what they did. And again, I had a couple of quotes. Mrs. Chapin is a 6th grade ELA teacher, and Mrs. Smith is a 5th grade ELA teacher, and they just couldn't talk enough about the valuable information they got. So they felt like the running record was very similar to the conferring that they had been doing prior to starting those assessments, and it was just a conversation that they were having. And they will be using a lot of that same questioning that was in the question part of F&P when they're actually conferring with kids. And it also helped them identify maybe some very specific discrete skills that they could add to a conferring session that would be more powerful for a student.
Very good. Are you also using the F&P assessment as well?
Yeah, that's the running record. I just go back and forth. So when I say
Oh.
running record, I mean F&P, and I apologize.
Okay. All right. Let's see. So the behavior, I like how you're building the system, recognizing the areas that need work. What are some of your repeat behaviors that you're writing up?
Absolutely. I think the kids come to middle school, they come to Olympic and they think they're in middle school. So I'm not really sure they're really in middle school. It's an intermediate. And so they have these grandiose ideas of a little more freedom. And they've got to test the waters, because we all do that when you go someplace new, right? So we've had some behavior with, I guess I would say, just kind of skipping classes, taking our time to get there, some tardies. So again, we've looked at our data and we've identified probably 3 areas that we need to work a little harder on. So we have a few students who we are now tracking when they get to class. What time, how long does it take them to get all the way across the hall to their next class? And then if they do go out to use the bathroom, how long are they out? And those are conversations we're having one-on-one with the students, as well as with their parents. Their parents want to know, like, your child went to the bathroom and was in there for 20 minutes. You might want to take them to the doctor. Maybe they're not feeling well. Ha ha. But anyway, so really just looking at what are those reasons that those things are occurring. So we have that. We do have, some disrespect, because kids are learning, right? They're like, all of a sudden it's like, maybe I don't want to do that. And again, those are just those teachable moments. So we've tried to really empower our teachers around what is a teachable moment. Every time you send a child out of your classroom, you lose power. You are the authority. So what can we do to support you so you can maintain that relationship with that child? So often we'll step in to the classroom and be like, why don't you have that conversation? So, we're working on it, getting to know. We've had to work really hard again. A third of our certificated staff are new in our building, so systems are there and they are amazing, but making sure that everybody is, that we're all kind of calibrated on what that really means. And just in the last 2 weeks, I cannot believe the growth we have seen. The students are starting to know that we care about them. Some of the people that were there last year aren't there, and they miss them. That's kind of a loss in their lives. So it's taken them a while to understand that Mr. Kraft and I care about them just like Mrs. Brady did. And so I just see some really great things going on, and we're tackling the other issues head on, right? What are they? When are they happening? Why do we believe they're happening? And how can we engage and work with the parents? Because what we find is when we call the parents, they're not like, wow, really? They're like, I'm seeing that at home. What can we do together? And that has just been some really powerful work that we've been able to do.
So at your school, what is the consequence for someone who is disrespectful to a teacher and uses foul language in the classroom?
Well, it's going to be different because every story is different. So it could be everything from the child might need to take some time to calm down. The teacher might need to take a little bit of time to calm down. So we have a response system, so they'll call. And often, I'll be honest, often by the time we get down there, everything's already kosher. It's like, you know what, things are okay, we'll talk about it later. So we do a lot of work of meeting, talking with our students and saying, what were you feeling? Why would you say that? What were you thinking? How did that make you feel? Obviously something occurred to make you feel this way. And then it's just really a conversation with them and trying to get them to see other perspectives. Perspective taking is really difficult, right? To understand that there are other ways that you could express how you are feeling. And then having a moment, having an opportunity for them to restore that relationship. So when everybody is calm, to come back to the table and say, hey, I'm really sorry that I said that to you. I didn't mean that the way it said, or that was unkind of me. So that's sort of our first layer, and quite often that really takes care of that situation. So if we have a student that might be a little more, I don't want to say chronic, but might be having a little more difficulty, again, it's there's some reasons behind that and some stemming behind that. So we try to get to what that might be. An example would be, I had a young girl that I was having more of a difficult time establishing a relationship with, and so I decided I had to change my approach. She wasn't going to change her approach. So my approach changed to, instead of kind of like seeming shocked, it was more of a, wow, you must be having a tough day, and then just walking off. And after doing that for a few days, it was like, oh, first of all, I'm not getting the attention I wanted, and second of all, she's recognizing maybe I really am having a tough day, and what can we do about that? So meeting our kids where they are and supporting our staff at the same time. It's not easy, but it's great work, and we have the staff in our building to do it.
Thank you for a good presentation.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Matt.
First of all, I love listening to somebody who loves their job. It's obvious. The just mentality is infectious through your building. It's going to get easier and easier for you. Kids are going to do great things. I love that you're focusing on parent involvement and remembering that every kid's story is different, and that you have to really understand the why and not the what. You know, that they're acting out is a product of a million other things. And I learned a word, phonological. I'm going to use it at least 3 times next week. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Sandy, did you have questions, or Lauren?
I'd just like to also thank you for your presentation. It was really thorough and informative, and some of the things I have written down here is I like how you addressed small items. They all add up to these bigger improvements, and I really like that approach. And also thank you for your time and patience on narrowing down those exclusionary practices and really, like you said, meeting kids where they're at. It's great to hear those things, and it's hard on everybody, hard on the teachers, but hopefully the students are seeing the impact and having success. So, thank you.
Thank you.
I just had a couple of real quick questions. Did I see another reading vending machine in the picture?
Yes, but I can't take credit for that one because that was ordered already before I came, but isn't it beautiful?
So how many do we have now?
2, one here and one there.
Okay.
But I think maybe more coming.
Okay, I like that. And just for clarification, FNP stands for?
Fisher and Fontes and Pinnell. Wow. See, got it backwards.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I wanted to ask a clarifying question too, and I think you may have answered it for me, but you said there were 11 new teachers. Are those, they're not brand new to the profession, just new to the building?
Yeah, we are super lucky. Chelsea really rocked it. We only have 1 brand new teacher of those 11. The rest all came from junior high or high school and taught in the content area. I don't think anybody else had less than 5 years of teaching experience. So instructionally, we are sitting really good. We're just, like I said, we're just tightening up, getting to know what Olympic looks like and our clientele. And
Yes.
it's pretty awesome.
And did I hear this wrong? Did you say there were 590 students?
588, I think, yep.
588.
We are bursting at the seams and loving it.
Okay, wow. Yeah, that's the bubble, isn't it? Yes, that's the bubble class. Because I was like, that's bigger than I've heard in years past. And it is difficult. I think those, you know, the fact that they're moving from an elementary school that they've been very comfortable in to what does seem like a step up, but, you know, and then it's only 2 years there and then they move another one. So our 2 transition schools, I think just at that age and stage of life too, can bring some of those complications. But I liked what I was hearing too. You really walked through what the student discipline was like. I liked hearing that after 3 restorative practices, then you are calling the parents and getting them involved. You know, and I can relate to feeling like, you know, they're probably like, yes, I'm dealing with this too. How do you work on some of this together? Because some of the attitudes parents are wondering how that's coming about as well too. But yeah, I really like seeing the pictures. I like the book vending machine that you've got over there as well too. And it sounds like, I think given some time, things are going to come together very well. So
Yeah, they really are. It's so hopeful and so wonderful.
yeah, thank you very much for
All
your
right.
presentation. Unless we have any other questions, we good? All right, thank you very
guys.
much. All right, now we can go on to 5.04, which is the literacy instruction in grades pre-K through 12 with Chelsea Brady and Adrian Minery. And friends.
Good evening, Madam Board President Davidson and other esteemed directors and student body representatives and our superintendent, Mr. Jesse. My name is Adrienne Minery. I'm the Director of Curriculum and Instruction for K through 6. We are very lucky to have some of our wonderful teachers who've stepped in with us tonight on parent-teacher conference night. So they'll be here to speak to some very specific pieces, and then they're going to be going back to their conferences that they had scheduled and their family engagement events.
I'm Chelsea Brady. I'm the new director for 712, so get to talk from a different position this year, but thank you so much for having us. So like Adrienne said, we do have some teachers with us tonight. We have Matt Hirsch, and he teaches English at the high school. We'll introduce our other teachers, but I did want to mention Matt because he is on a bit of a time frame. He has a conference coming up here soon, so I'm not sure we're going to be able to have him speak with us tonight, but he left some notes with me, so I just wanted to thank him for coming in case you see him sneak out the door, that's why.
And I just wanted to quickly introduce Julie Roberts is an amazing Title Lap teacher at Bordeaux Elementary and also former Shelton Schools parent. And then Vanessa behind us, I'll let you introduce.
Oh yes, we have Vanessa Apaloya. This year she is our 712 TOSA, so she's supporting some of our new teachers and also supporting the work in literacy at our 712 schools. She is not only a former teacher, she was a teacher at OMS, she's taught ML, she taught ELA last year, also was a former student, so just have to put that out there. So we appreciate them coming tonight. Like Adrienne mentioned, at the end of our presentation, we are going to let them get back to conferences, and so we're going to get through our presentation and then open it up for questions at the end. So, is this working? That's the question. Perhaps. There you go. Okay, I'll let you do that. So tonight, of course, we're going to be talking about literacy. We're going to talk about the Big Five, which I know that our superintendent referenced last week in his presentation. We're going to go a little deeper into what that actually looks like in the classroom. We're going to talk about word study tonight. There's been a lot of questions about, how we teach phonics and those foundational skills. So we're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about how do we get our students to standards. We know we have a range of abilities and a large range of needs. And so what steps are we taking to help students get to standard? And just kind of the shift and the change in our approach. So we'll talk about that. And then also, of course, how we're supporting our teachers with this shift.
Okay, so you'll recognize here a slide referencing the findings from the National Reading Panel. And this panel convened in the year 2000, and what their findings have just been reiterated over time. So they identified the Big Five, these 5 pillars of reading instruction, as being absolutely fundamental to include in our reading instruction in order to have the transfer to student learning. So you'll see the phonemic awareness and phonics, of course, addressing those foundational skills, what we think of as our word study, transitioning into fluency, and then how does our word learning with our vocabulary then impact comprehension. So we'll be taking a look at how that plays out on a K-12 range in our approach to literacy here in the district.
And we just wanted to touch on structures and routines and engagement. That's probably something that you've heard as a theme that's come up in our SIP plans and some of the other presentations is we're really pushing on having structures and routines in our classroom. We know that having predictable classroom structures is helpful for all of our students, but especially our ML students that are learning the language. If language is a barrier, but they know how to enter into the classroom and enter into learning, we know that that supports them. And students of all levels, truly, when we have those structures and routines in place. It's connected to our safe and welcoming schools when we set up our classrooms for success. And as it relates to literacy, and you can see some examples up there, how we're using this space in our classroom, purposeful spaces for our mini lessons, what do we have on our walls. We have a couple examples up there. We have Sherry Strickland, who's a kindergarten teacher at Bordeaux, so you can see her up there in a word study lesson. She's doing a phonics lesson with her group there. And then in the other picture, we have Abigail Cruz. She's a third grade teacher at Evergreen doing a word study phonics lesson in a dual language class. So you can see just how the students are sitting, what do they have in front of them, how are they engaging in the lesson, so that structures and routines and engagement really sets the stage for some of the work that we're doing in literacy.
All right, so we'll start out with looking at our approach at the elementary schools, and then we'll kind of bridge up through our grade levels. So what this slide is illustrating here is how we, in our master schedules, have blocks of time set up to address that, the big five, you can see there. And you can think of these blocks as being conceptual rather than time-related. In the next slide, we'll look to see how it plays out in an actual schedule in one of our second grades at one of our elementaries. So our first block here is for Reader's Workshop. And we're really addressing the fluency, the vocabulary, and the comprehension during that block with our mini lesson, time for independent and partner reading, and then also time for small groups. But you'll see with the arrow there, looking to show how there's a bridge with the next block down with our word study, particularly focused on our phonics and phonemic awareness in our elementary grades, so that our students experience word study instruction both in a block that's dedicated to it, in immersive study throughout the day, and we'll look at that in the schedule slide that comes next. But then our small group, and Julie will be speaking to that later in our presentation, how when we have time set up for small groups during our school day, that allows for targeted instruction that's really meeting the individual needs of kids. And so if that is need around building their phonemic awareness or phonics subset skills, that we're able to meet that during that small group block. And then, of course, we also know that writing is an important component of our literacy standards, so we have a block set up for that as well. So this is an actual second grade schedule that our second grade teachers follow at Bordeaux Elementary. And it might not be the same exact times at all of our elementaries, but they all do have set schedules that address these components. So you'll see they have a morning meeting. The items that are highlighted in blue are ones that really specifically address literacy. So during that morning entry work time, we actually provided PD on this at Summer Summit as a great opportunity to fold in some of that work, whether it be with reading the morning message or interacting with the word wall, what have you, doing some handwriting instruction and practice can get folded into that time. There's a 40-minute block for our word work, a 40-minute block for Reader's Workshop, and it's attached to a 40-minute block here for small groups. And then our writing is in that content study block there, because just with the technicalities, sometimes if you have a longer science experiment, then your writing might get folded in to the writing in the science journal and so forth. So that allows for that flexibility that our teachers need. So you can see what then the minutes add up to there on this side with the 120 guaranteed minutes of focused instruction, and then up to 60 minutes of additional instruction that's getting woven into other content areas and flexed into the day. So we'll dive right in to the word study work that we are doing. So you can see how this is just sort of a one-page overview to look at what those expectations are, those grade level expectations, and how they build from grade level to grade level. And so why that is that it's so important that we do have that word study tier 1 block built into the day for students to have exposure to and instruction in the content that is expected to be mastered at that grade level, so that that's guaranteed instructional time for them. Another thing just to point out quickly is that phonemic awareness is a thread that goes throughout the grades. So at the very beginning in kindergarten, it might be building very basic phonological awareness and understanding of alphabet sounds and the alphabetic principle. But when they're starting to get into multisyllabic words in the later grades, they're still building the awareness of the sounds that build up those words in order, I think as somebody was saying earlier, to connect it to the orthographic mapping and what they need to do in order to be able to read and then encode the words. We do have an extensive PD series that started at Summer Summit with our word study that the amazing Miss Roberts is helping to design and deliver. So just pointing out, this was one example that we went through the different 26 letters representing 44 phonemes in the English language, for example, and all of the different ways that we might pronounce those and how they relate to one another. And so then wrapping up here with bridging out, and you had this example. The example was included in the packet. The full example, you'll just see 2 screenshots from it here, of the importance, the foundational importance, and why we include it in our days, in our schedules, and our instructional programming for focus on word study and foundational skills. And yet, we know that we also have to focus on more than that, starting even in kindergarten, to get our students ready to be meeting the grade level expectations that are outlined by our standards and illustrated by this example, a release item from the summative tests that students take at the end of the year. So what you'll see in this is that this is just one section of the test that students would take. They would be expected to read this informational passage and then answer both literal recall and inferential recall and vocabulary type of questions about the passage that they had just read.
So just with that in mind, we kind of tried to have just a picture of what it looks like for those skills to progress. Because we do have to address all 5 of those components. And even if we have students that are still needing instruction on those foundational skills, we need to make sure that we're giving opportunities to build their comprehension skills along the way, because that complexity grows amongst the grade levels. So the example that we had provided in there is just how a particular standard builds over time. And so we just need to make sure that if they're still working on some foundational skills, we're removing that barrier and we're still giving them opportunities to practice those comprehension skills and not just getting stuck in foundations. And then we just want to take a second to talk about the workshop model. So we know that we're teaching these big 5. We're using this workshop model to set up our classrooms, not only because of the structures and routines that just sets our classrooms up for success. I know you've heard a lot about mini lesson. We've talked about that quite a bit, but that really allows us to focus on a specific explicit skill that we're teaching to our students, and then giving them authentic opportunities to practice that skill within the workshop model during that independent reading time. And then again, we've talked about just the need for differentiation. You heard our schools talk about the importance of conferring and actually working with those individual students or students in a small group to really address the range of readers and just learners in their classroom. So this model really lends itself to be able to meet the needs of our students and just provide quality literacy instruction. And then I won't read this to you. You can see this up here. It's in your packet, but it is a quote from Richard Allington. He's a professor. He also led the International Literacy Association, which provides guidance for literacy all over the world. And essentially what this says is that the biggest impact on learning is volume of reading and, of course, choice on what they're reading. And so I think that we're really trying to build that into our model. There's a lot of research about the importance of volume of reading, and we're starting to see some real success from that. And this is just a quick kind of showing the cycle of our literacy instruction and engagement. So you can just see here, we have a teacher that's conferring, we have a mini lesson, you can see there a student who's practicing the skill. Really this cycle focuses on learning and then application of learning as being an ongoing cycle as opposed to just task completion. Just authentic opportunities to practice what they're learning. And then Matt did have to step out. I really appreciated him coming, but he had to get back for a conference. So he was going to talk with us just about secondary literacy. This is, of course, year 1 for 712, but we're really excited about how quickly it's taking off. Our teachers are coming together. We're providing a lot of PD and really getting people on board. They're excited about it, but the students is who's most excited about this. So you can kind of see what a typical literacy classroom looks like. So they're starting with the do now task, again, thinking about structures and routines. Students know right when they come into the classroom how to get started, and it's connected to what's happening in the classroom. They have their mini lesson, and Matt said he was going to share that students are really bought into knowing it will be mini, and that, okay, I can engage for this 15 minutes, and then I'm going to get some time. So he said that's really been a positive thing for kids. And then they get that opportunity for independent reading where they're practicing their skills, and teachers are calling them up and they're conferring with them. Matt mentioned to me that the conferring is really starting to take off. Kids are getting excited to talk about their books and to talk with each other about books. He said something he's noticed recently is just, and I think we heard someone else talk about this too, but kids are recommending books to each other, and so certain titles are, getting some steam. And he said the way that he knew it was working, when it really started working, is that kids were lingering after class to talk about their books. So those were some of the anecdotes he was going to share with you tonight, but we're really excited that even just in mid-October that we're starting to see it really take hold. And that really brings us to kind of the change in our approach, right? And so what we had been doing before was a lot of whole class instruction, whole class novels or anthology where everyone was reading the same text. I was thinking even about our focus groups when we were putting together the strategic plan and really trying to listen to our students, and they referenced this. They didn't all want to read the same book, or we put the hatchet up there, which I'm not knocking on. I know this came up in another meeting and somebody said, I love that book. It's a great book. But if everybody has to read it, or they heard it in 5th grade, 9th grade, and 12th grade, it loses its meaning, right? And students become less engaged in the classroom, less motivated. And then really there was a lot of worksheets going on, which isn't really authentic learning. Students aren't really excited about doing a worksheet, but they are getting excited about having some authentic opportunities to engage in their learning. And then we're talking a little bit, and you'll hear in a moment, about just the difference in how we support our students. So previously, students were being pulled out for 30 minutes based on their qualifications. So with a specific teacher, it's a student who qualifies in EL for 30 minutes on a specific thing that's really not connected to what's happening in the classroom. And what we were seeing is that learning wasn't transferring. So while they may have been, successful for that 30 minutes, then they would come back to class, and then what for the rest of the day, right? So that learning just wasn't really transferring. And so now with our new approach, and you'll again hear a little bit more about that, but we have our standards-based units, which again are really taking hold, and as people are getting to know those units better, but it builds skills over time. There's a great progression. They're more rigorous and just, again, authentic. We keep using that term. And then students being in Just Right books. So Just Right is not just about level, it's also about choice. And students are much more motivated and engaged when they get to choose what they're reading. And then we have our Tier 1 word study that we've talked about, and that's really targeting building up the foundational skills. We know we still need to do that, but then also supporting the rest of our literacy instruction as well. So we're really excited about the shift, and I think our students are too, so.
So I'll just introduce this, and I'll let Ms. Roberts speak to this as well. So what you'll see here, and this is, I know there's a lot on this slide, but we'll just walk through it here. And of course, the names are pseudonyms. But these 12 out of 20 students were performing well below benchmark on this assessment that's called DIBELS. That is one of our benchmark assessments that we use to measure reading proficiency. And it really gives us a lot of insight, particularly into students' mastery of the foundational skills, so their phonics, phonemic awareness, and so forth. Okay. So in the traditional method on the side there, what you'll see is that students were assigned really based largely on qualification for program, and then they would be pulled out for, even if the service was provided in the classroom, it would be for long chunks of time with the same kids, but not always necessarily tied to the subset skills. So moving in to this different method that Ms. Roberts has helped to champion and pilot is that what you'll see is that there's target skills based on identified students' needs that were short and focused. I'll hand it over here to Julie.
So I just want to share that I am so grateful for this opportunity to shift our practice. It's not come without its challenges, but the benefits have far outweighed those. One of the benefits that you see on the right-hand side is we're able to reach a greater number of students than when we only identify and then we say, I can take this many and now my group is full, and the classroom teacher has to figure out a solution for the rest of them. By focusing on skills rather than students, those groups are really flexible and we're able to move students in and out of those groups as needed, and even provide services to students who wouldn't traditionally be labeled as a struggling reader but do have a need in a certain skill area. And then another thing that's really great about it is it gives us that opportunity to collaborate with the classroom teacher and make sure that what we're doing is aligned to their core instruction, because we've often struggled with that new knowledge not transferring back to the classroom. They would come and work with me, and those were just things they did with that lady in that room. Those were not skills that they applied all day long as they continued their learning in their classroom. And so being in the same space and being able to see the anchor charts and the word wall and all of the things that are going on and connect my work to that has been extremely beneficial for those students. And then also for us as teachers to be able to collaborate with one another has been really great as well. And so I'm a data person, that's my job. And so we can feel about what's good for kids, but I want to see the evidence of what's good for kids. And so using that measure that Adrian was describing, the DIBELS, it generates a composite score for the students based on all of those different factors. And we're able to measure their growth from, in this case, fall to winter. And in this particular classroom, we started out with more of a traditional model. I was going into the classroom, but I was still working with the same students for the whole time every day. And when we saw the results, of course, you know, we were pleased that those students were making growth. They're always growing, but it wasn't enough growth to close that learning gap. It was not accelerating their learning fast enough. So you can see that based on the DIBELS and all the norming data that's in there, you can see how much growth those students were making. And really anything below that red line is what we need to close the gap. Our students need to make above average growth so that they can, you know, get the skills they need to get back up to grade level. And so you can see that wasn't happening. And when we switched our approach in the spring, we saw a different result. You can start to see more of those students moving below that red line because we were focused on skills and we were able to move them in and out flexibly and connect to what they were doing all day long. We started to see that growth. So this year we're starting with that approach in all of our grade levels, and we're really excited to see what happens.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So I'll just touch on this. As Ms. Johnson pointed out, we are continually reflecting as a system. Very excited about the academy model that they're implementing in 5th and 6th grade for the upcoming year, with really building in that intentional time for our word study, as well as making connections across the curriculum, and offering opportunities for word study for students who are above grade level, on grade level, approaching, and below, who need some acceleration in their instruction. The other thing, just pointing out here quickly, is that we do have that interdisciplinary team model that Mrs. Johnson referred to, with the ELA math and science teachers working together in teams that also allows for more targeted supports and an approach. Okay.
I'm actually going to hand this off to Vanessa.
Hello. So as Chelsea kind of mentioned before, this is my first year working as a 7 through 12 TOSA. But before that, I worked, it's okay. Before that, I worked at SHS and OMS as an English language learner teacher, and I taught ELA and social studies during that time. And I'm excited to update you on some of the ways that the Shelton School District has been working to meet the needs of our changing population. The reading and writing workshop model that the school district has adopted benefits multilingual students in several key ways. Multilingual students at all levels now have daily access to core curriculum and grade level standards, which is some of the stuff that we've kind of been talking about already. And now that we're kind of in our second year of implementation, the targeted remediations are also being implemented for students with more language development and literacy needs. So for example, Mary was talking about at OMS, this academy time, that we're getting even more specific and granular, as well as talking about some of the things we're doing at Bordeaux. So we're able to, we have this really good base instruction, and then now we're getting more specific and differentiating for the students that need more help and building time into that. At the classroom level, sentence frames are being embedded, as you guys heard, into a lot of the instruction, which benefits multilingual learners because it allows all students to participate in speaking and writing tasks and be productive when they're sharing their ideas in pairs or in small groups. Students are also being trained in using graphic organizers and other visual aids that support comprehension. And intentional student groupings are being used to support students with their reading comprehension. When these types of supports are embedded into lessons daily, it's possible to see really impressive student achievement and see growth across the year that you wouldn't have necessarily thought possible. And the reading and writing workshop also allows for better collaboration between the content teacher and the interventionists. Because all teachers are using the same unit plans, interventionists have a greater impact in their co-planning and their differentiation, rather than when people are doing things in isolation. As we saw, the only way to really learn how to read well is to read, and students need access to authentic text. And having them have a qualification, that being a justification to give them less text, is only going to hinder their development, not accelerate it. And so particularly for our students learning other languages, we need to provide access to that in the general education environment while providing targeted support to them. In my experience, if you provide students with multiple opportunities to engage in high-level thinking, they will rise to the occasion and surprise you by producing work that you didn't think was possible. And a high level of support has to be paired with high standards, and exposing students to grade level standards in a way that is accessible to them is essential to providing an equitable education. Although we're early on in implementing the reading and writing workshop, it's only our second year, there are several resources that we're building now to support ML students, but also special education students and just general students, anyone. So for example, the picture up here is an image of the Emerging Reader Resource Library that we've created at Shelton High School. And one is currently being created at the junior high as well. And we hope to have something like this in all secondary sites. And this is really like, we merged different kind of curricula that were being used or not used, depending on what it was. We merged them all together, inventoried them, put them in genres that matched the classroom libraries, and then leveled them so it was easy and accessible for students and staff to use at any time. And this can complement the unit plans because it allows teachers to select books at the student's level, but that's still related to the genre or the content that's being taught. So that way they're still engaging with grade level content, but they are kind of mastering the skill at their level. Our student population, as we all know, is increasingly diverse, and our methods of teaching need to evolve with the evolution of our community. And it's not really possible due to our numbers, and maybe it never even really was, to just pull out a few students and teach them English because, you know, multilingual students are a big part of our overall community. And so the pull-out method might be like what's familiar to a lot of teachers and students, but that doesn't mean that it's better. And so I'm excited to continue to watch the evolution of our literacy model at Shelton School District, and I look forward to providing more updates as we kind of continue to refine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Oh, sorry.
Okay, you're good.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Vanessa. She's doing some great work. As we mentioned before, we just wanted to touch on that we are supporting our teachers because we know that this is a change for everyone. And so some of the things that we're doing, this is not a comprehensive list, but just to name a few, we have our Summer Summit. This was year 2 of the Summer Summit. It was awesome. It was so great to have everybody together and have a really focused learning. So we are all moving in the same direction. So that was a 4-day opportunity for our teachers. And then we have ongoing professional development on this throughout the year. Just last Friday, when students were released early, teachers were engaging in professional development on this. And then we have a K-6 literacy work group, as well as a 712 ELA cadre, because it's got to sound a little different since it's secondary, but really it's some leaders in our teaching community that are helping to really spearhead this work. And then we have some consulting, ongoing coaching, and really just support and feedback opportunities for our teachers to be involved in the process.
So we'll wrap up here by looking at some data. This slide is probably familiar as Superintendent Jesse presented it last week. So you'll see that we did have growth at 3rd and 6th grade in our first year of implementation last year. And now we're rolling out our first year of implementation for 7-12 this school year. So I'll move to the next slide, and we're pretty excited about this. So we do give the MAP benchmark assessment 3 times a year in our grades 1 through 6 had the assessment last year. 1 through 8, apologies. So we this assessment is one that millions of students take in thousands of school districts. It's actually taken around the world. And with so many users and the way that the test is designed, it's designed to measure both achievement and growth. With so many students taking it, then the statisticians that look at it, they have a way of measuring what expected growth would be for a particular student and then on average for a grade level or a school based on their baseline data. So if a particular student scored in the 50th percentile for growth, that would mean that they met their expected growth based on statistical averages for all the other kids who took it, who started at that baseline. So what you'll see here is at 3rd grade at Bordeaux, we were on average in the 88th percentile for growth. At Evergreen in 3rd grade, we were on average in the 97th percentile for growth based on our baseline data and then what our spring data showed. And then at Mountain View in 3rd grade at the 95th percentile for growth. You'll see that we didn't have quite those same gains at Olympic Middle School. As part of our continuous improvement process is to continue to go back every year and think about what is our data showing us, just as Ms. Roberts was sharing. What is our data showing us? What do we think we need to do? We have made some programmatic decisions. We also know that this is why from the beginning of year 1, we know that the work at our early elementaries, we do need to focus in on those foundational skills and the word work so that those are mastered and that the bulk of our students are continuing to have to do that work as they move through our grade levels, which does impact outcomes for them. So with that, this is our last slide.
This is it. And really, we just want to thank you for the opportunity to share. We are really excited about this new approach, and we're excited that teachers are digging in and that students actually are really engaged and that they are excited about this work. So I do want to thank you so much to our teachers for coming. Yes, can we just thank them? Thank you for coming. I'll pass along our thanks to Matt. We are going to let them either take a seat or head back to their conferences. And then we do want to just open it up for any questions that you guys have.
Who would like to jump in? Carla, you want to kick us off again? I think everybody's anticipating that you have questions.
I have a lot of questions, but I have a lot of appreciation. This is a huge undertaking to change our literacy model, to work out the things that are not working well for teachers. And so I hope you're listening to the teachers and what they're saying they need help with, because it is a huge shift. And I just heard you say that, you know, in the kindergarten, first grade area, the whole word work and bringing phonics in is a concern, and you understand that maybe the model we set up so far still needs some tweaking to make it work for those teachers. I read through the units and the overall framework for a grade level, and I thought, oh, it's a good thing I'm retired, because it's a lot to bring everything together, the pieces of it. So I admire our teachers for taking it on, and thank you for your work. And I hope that teachers' voices will be recognized, because I think that's how we'll be a strong team, is if we're working together and know where there are areas of concern. And I understand we are going to have a new phonics type program, an aid called Words Their Way, and that sounds like a really good way to bring that phonics component in. So thank you for your work. That's all I have.
Thank you, Carla.
Are there other questions or comments?
Thank you for your presentation. It seems that the early implementation has had encouraging results. I'm a data person, so I appreciate the effort and time that is, being addressed, and with what works for students and matching them with the correct supports. Literacy touches every classroom, and the ways you have brought the district together to learn, improve, and collaborate is quite impressive, so thank you.
So, first of all, thanks for everything that you guys are doing, really everybody. But I know that, I go back to Walt Disney all the time, and to educate and get people to buy in, first you got to entertain them. And so being able to, pick up all these different books and read different things, who knows, I may have actually enjoyed Shakespeare if I didn't have to read it with 35 people. One of the questions that I do have, we talked a lot about the phonicology and the phonological approach. I'm going to use it 3 times. And the question I really have is, as I read adults' reports and papers and things like that, knowing that we have to get the sight words in, and that by definition, phonics is a sight word. It's not phonetically correct, so it doesn't fit the phonological model 3 times. How and where really are you guys focusing on that? Because I'm still seeing it in adult writing that, there, and there is wrong. And we keep going.
Yeah, that's a great question. So on our, I'll get way down in the weeds because you're speaking to my heart here around word study and foundational skills instruction. These guys are nodding yes, that's true. So part of our PD series and some of the tools we've been providing to our teachers are a framework for teaching into foundational skills instruction at K4, but it's also translating up into some of our integrated support staff and remediation teachers in the upper grade levels for students who still need this work are actually using some of the same tools, just transformed for kids of that age. But the framework that we've given them teaches into 5 key areas. So phonological awareness and phonemic awareness is really important as a component under that umbrella. The direct instruction in phonics itself. High frequency words. So high frequency words, depending on what we read, and those are what we traditionally think of as being like our sight words, account for 50 to 75 to 80% of everything that we read and write, depending on the context. If you're reading an advanced chemistry textbook, There'll be less of it than if you were reading a book for first graders, right? So we have direct instruction into the study of high frequency words with research and evidence-based practices that we know transfer to learning with those, and a scope and sequence for every grade level K through 4. Then the fourth component of the framework is we know how important direct instruction is, but the kids need the opportunity to manipulate what they're learning with. So there's actually a section that we call games and activation. So what are you going to do to play with the words? To play I Spy with the high frequency words that you've added to the word wall so far, and those kind of things, and so forth. And then the fifth area, again, going to transference, is how are you practicing those skills with connected text? So the curricular resources that we have decodable texts attached to them. The nice thing is that they're also reproducible, so that our amazing educators are finding ways to make sure that there's family involvement there, so that once the child is practiced with that text at school, there's some expectation that it's read at home. So some teachers have even made 2 copies so that kids have an at-home copy and an at-school copy. But those decodable texts practice both the phonics skills that they've been taught and the high frequency words that they've been taught.
Thank you.
You take me back to my own kids learning phonics and coming across a comedian named Brian Regan and his little skit on Hooked on Pahonics. It was a fun little skit. The kids have really enjoyed that. But that being said, you know, I am a big proponent of phonics, and you know, have seen it do a tremendous amount of good in getting a lot of kids up to speed on reading and liking to read. Couple of questions, just thinking about a dual language school or a dual language class. Is the dual language, in essence, taught in phonics of that language as well?
So they have a word study block in both languages. So they have a word study in Spanish and a word study in English block built into their schedules.
Okay, I guess my question, though, would be, you know, some of your pronunciation of your Spanish letters are, you know, different than English. And so they must be learning that in a similar phonics type of way.
Yeah, and so the research, so there's, Kat Kelly will have to help me with all of my words around the specifics around the vocabulary, but there's the idea of teaching into translanguaging, so helping kids to build those bridges between the 2 languages, both to understand that, for example, in English, some of our words come from Latin roots that Spanish words, of course, do too. So where are the similarities that can help them figure out both meaning and pronunciation, but then explicitly then where are the differences. So we're being really intentional about how we schedule dual language this year. Ms. Kelly has worked closely with Ms. Kennedy, the principal at Evergreen Elementary, to make sure that we're thoughtfully scheduling how their dual language block happens so that we can teach into the Big 5 and build in opportunities for that translanguaging across the 2 languages. I think in that one of those first photos, what you saw there was a first-year amazing teacher supported by another one of our amazing TOSAs who was doing a word study lesson there. I think that was an English word study lesson, but some of the structures and routines could transfer then to her Spanish word study.
And one of the other challenges that came to my mind would be, you know, the many different forms of dyslexia and lots of other challenges to being able to benefit as easily from phonics. So what are the supports for those students in that area?
That's a great question. So there's a couple of key important pieces, I think, to unpack there as we're thinking about those important questions that affect the lives of our students. And the first one is to ensure that we're offering Tier 1 instruction with strategies that support students who might be at risk for dyslexia before we start to move to intervention or diagnosis. So that's part of the reason we've invested this time in PD for our teachers. So with direct instruction, and then with that idea of the transference with the games, the activation, particularly the use of multisensory strategies. So for example, you saw there with, again, that one first year teacher having the students tap out sounds on their arms. I'm actually working with a first grade team, and we're doing a coaching cycle. I'll be teaching a phonics lesson on Thursday. And practicing some of the skills that were from our PD that we taught last week. We were tapping sounds out on our fingers, listening to our throats as we were making different sounds. So all of those things that we know that support students who are at risk for dyslexia before then we jump to the next step. But we just need to make sure we have that shored up, particularly at our K-1-2, right from the start. Thank you.
I guess I will jump in. Thank you very much for such a comprehensive presentation. I think that this is something that's incredibly important. It's obviously a big part of our strategic plan to boost literacy. I really appreciated everything that I saw up there. Wonderful to have teachers that were excited, and I know if Matt Hirsch had been able to speak, he was one of my daughter's teachers. He gets very animated, and he's voted oftentimes at the high school as one of their speakers at graduation because he's a great speaker. We would have enjoyed that too. But it's nice to see their excitement around the things that are being changed, and I know that this is just year 2 of implementation. One of the things that I'm wondering about just as a parent and also a school board member as I'm listening to all of this is what are the opportunities for feedback for teachers and for the parents? You know, I'm thinking of, we do have English language learners, we do have kids with IEPs, we do have kids that just don't hit any of those but still are struggling. Is it really during conference time when you get kind of that teacher parent feedback, and then how does that roll up to all of you, or is there some other method for this, just to hear feedback of, you know, whether this is working for their child, whether it's working with the teacher, and what needs or gaps there might be?
Do you want me to, can I start at the elementary first? Okay. So we do have, speaking from the teacher level, our work group and cadre that we're meeting with regularly so that they can bring feedback from their sites and their experience with implementation to our group. And I'll hand it to Chelsea, but also just at the elementary level. So for example, Miss Roberts was going back to her building because in addition to conferences, they have a family engagement event. So that's a direct opportunity for engagement between families and then the staff in addition to conferences. So I know that they're really thoughtfully working to schedule those at times that work more readily for families. I know myself as a working parent, it's hard to find the time to, you know, schedule all the different events, especially when your kids are at different schools. So the more we can thoughtfully do that to partner with things that are already there in place, I think helps our families.
So I was just going to mention, we also have our 712 ELA cadre, so just from a secondary lens. The members of that group are not only talking with teachers and bringing feedback, but we're meeting with teachers as well. So at a couple of their early release PLC times, we actually went and had a whole feedback protocol so that they could give feedback not only on the units, what worked, what didn't, so that we could make revisions, but also just things that have come up that they would like more training on, or if someone could come into their classroom and model a particular part of workshop. They've been great at providing feedback, and we're really trying to be responsive to that. So some of the feedback that they had given to us, we made sure to hit on the 20th, just last Friday. So they gave us the feedback, and we actually adjusted what we were going to be doing to give some really specific support. It was actually around mini lessons and pacing, and how do I go from the unit to teaching this? What does that really look like? And so we shifted gears to make sure that we were meeting that need. So I think we're trying to build in a lot of feedback opportunities for teachers to make sure they're getting the support that they need, and that as we're moving forward, we're making adjustments. It's not going to just stay the same. This year, I know for K-6 looks very different than last year. Like Adrian mentioned, responding to the data so we can make some adjustments for students and for teachers. And we're in, year one for 7-12, but we're trying to be really responsive. Same for what she mentioned around in 7-12, students are really advocating for themselves too, around what's working for them and what kind of books they want to read. But we're trying to build that into conferences too, and sharing what kind of books their student has been into and giving some strategies for at home. And then each of our schools are doing a literacy event this year for family engagement.
Thank you. I really appreciate hearing all of that as well. Are there any other questions or comments? Nope. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. 5.05, we've got recognition of school leaders. With Mary Ann, you get to just keep staying up there.
All right. I just want to take a moment this evening, Board Director, President Davidson, members of the board, student representatives, just to acknowledge all of our educators and those who work in the field of education, from being a custodian to a secretary, whatever you do. The job is a lot. It's hard work. And I feel privileged to work in a district where we have people every day that step up to this work and enjoying what they're doing and are dedicated to supporting our students. But we're going to take a moment for the month of October and just point out our hardworking principals and appreciate them. We have many of them in the audience today, and thank you. Over the course of the last several weeks, you've had an opportunity just to listen to their school improvement plans, listen to the work that they're doing, supporting our approaches with ELA. It's a lot of work, and it's not easy, and I know they put in long hours. But to put together a school improvement plan collaboratively and to get everyone moving in the same direction, that takes a special person and a lot of time. And the ability to connect not only with your students, but with your staff and your families. So I just want to thank them and just show our appreciation for them, since it is October, month of appreciating our principals. Do you have any questions?
No questions, but we definitely appreciate every single principal and vice principal that we have here in the Shelton School District. I think we have some of the best ones that everybody that I've seen over the 8 years has really cared and put their heart into it. But I think that we've got a great group right now that's doing a lot of wonderful things in the school. And we definitely see I see the hours that you put into this job and how much that means to families and students.
I would suggest a round of applause for our principals.
All right, All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Unless there were any other comments, I don't want to cut anybody short. All right, we can go on to 5.06, which is recognition of Sandy Tarswell for her 9 years of service on the Shelton School Board.
That's very touching. I really was hoping this would be more on the low-key side, but I do.
Well, and you have to wait because I believe the superintendent's going to have a few words too.
I'll make
I did
it.
not bring any Kleenex.
Well, I don't want to cut you off too much, but when you think about it, she was appointed all the way back in August of 2014. That seems so long ago. And all the work and meetings just like this, and knowing that you never were paid. And just think about all the topics, the things that have come through. She came and was elected again for a 4-year term in November 15th of 2015, and then elected again for a second 4-year term in November 2019. civic duty is absolutely underappreciated. And I think when I think of Director Tarswell, I think of some things like how to connect the dots. If you've listened to her, you can hear the inquiry. Sometimes it gets really deep sometimes. I think sometimes she might be a good match for one of our directors of curriculum, Adrian, just wanting to get way into the details. I know that we have to think oftentimes, what is Director Tarswell going to ask us, right? I know Brenda's over there like, I know it's coming for me for the budget every time. So, and then just attending events. I know you don't necessarily see that. The public doesn't always see that, but you know, she does show up to other events. She does have this ability to want to go see the work in play. And I think that's a really important thing because that allows her, when she comes back, she's really involved on the other side of this. It's not just up here, obviously, on the mic and asking questions. It's actually seeing it and, again, connecting the dots. How does this work? How does this better this district? And really does have the kids' hearts at mind and really does have high expectations. And I think that's why the Shelton School District is where it is, just because of Director Tarswell. And then I just have to throw this last thing in is just, she has a really good memory. So you not only able to connect the dots, not only able to on the details, but she can pull things from way long ago that really does, I think, benefit ultimately the district because when you think about history, we oftentimes do repeat our failures and our mistakes. And for her to be able to cite specific examples and bring those to the conversation does enrich it in a way that allows us, again, for betterment and not always necessarily repeating the mistakes that we've done in the past. So I really appreciate that. That is very civic-minded. And I know the kids definitely benefited from you. So from me to you, thank you so much, Director Tarswell.
Thank you. Regarding questions, my mom once told me that she would hold her breath every time I'd say, "Mom, I got a question," because she never knew what it was going to be about. So I appreciate the sentiments. It's been a blessing to have worked with so many of you and learned from so many of you. And getting to know some, sorry I didn't get to know more people and have closer contact. Yes, I have loved going to all the events. You and I were just talking before the meeting about a fundraiser I had gone to early on that I had totally forgot where we had met years ago. It's been my pleasure to have gone to as many things as I could. There's been a lot of fun times going to, BizTown with Bordeaux and, in the classrooms, various Renaissance Fair, fundraiser at the high school, and the opportunity to be at Cedar last year in some of the classrooms. I've enjoyed the projects that Choice has done. I've taken many visitors on the trail that the Choice students did, the Teresa Johnson Trail. It's just been, my pleasure to help with, the Lions doing vision and hearing screenings, and, to have worked with so many people up here at the desk here, the students, and the reps have been fantastic. Every year I've really enjoyed watching the growth from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. Students that were very shy in the beginning, gaining confidence by the time they get to the end of the school year, being student rep. And it's been a pleasure to see the students graduate, especially the ones that I do know, but it's always cool to see everybody graduate. I'm thrilled to be able to shake everybody's hand that comes across the stage. And again, having worked with multiple superintendents, at one point in time I started counting up board members and I didn't finish. But again, I thank you all for the opportunity. Thank you for the flowers. I've been sitting here all night smelling them. Really have appreciated those, so thank you, everybody. And I'll miss you in some ways, but, you know. You may see me at, you know, still some functions and whatnot. I know when my son finished playing football, that was, you know, many years involved in going to Friday night games and practices and all that kind of stuff. And I remember sitting around that first Friday night going, what do we do? And I can just see my husband and I sitting around next Tuesday night going, huh. Two Tuesdays from now, yeah. You get to be home. What is this unusual opportunity? So I thank you all very much for being a part of my life. And, you know, there's a saying, people come into your life for reasons and seasons. And, you know, we have to move on to the next reason and the next season. But I do thank each and every one of you for being involved. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sandy. I'll save what I'm going to say till the end, I guess. So let's move on to the consent agenda. We've got the proposed personnel report. We've got the proposed general fund warrant, a few other warrants. I know Allison has been sick this week, so we are missing some of the notes from the last meeting, but we will get those in the next one. So is there a motion for the consent agenda?
I'm going to jump in here because it would be my last opportunity to make a motion.
Yes.
I'm going to move that we approve the consent agenda, and I say it's my last opportunity because I won't be able to make the November 14th meeting. So.
And I'll second that.
All right, it's been moved by Sandy and seconded by Matt to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Hearing none, the consent agenda has passed. We do not have any discussion and action items this evening, so we're going to move right into board member comments.
I'm all talked out.
All right. Lauren, can we start with you?
Sure.
We'll just go down the line.
I appreciate everyone coming out tonight to speak on their work with excitement and encouragement for the upcoming year. Hearing all the ways literacy is being focused and improved in the school district is great to hear after the last couple months, and it not only, the presentations, not only on school improvement, but on literacy also answered a lot of questions and a lot of comments that I've heard, you know, from us and the general public. So I really appreciate the time and effort you put into that. And I would like to thank Sandy for all your years of service to the board. You are a wealth of knowledge that will be lost with you moving on, but I hope that you will bring all of those good questions back, either in emailing us or comments, or if you're home on Tuesday nights watching now instead, just provide that perspective back to us. It's, even if you're not sitting here, it's still valuable, and I appreciate it.
Yes, I'd like to thank the presenters tonight for giving us a comprehensive view of your school or your program. It was very informative. And again, I'd like to say to Sandy, congratulations on retiring from school board. And you have been a great school board member to work with, easy to talk to, and even if we didn't agree, always very respectful. So I appreciate you, Sandy, and you'll be missed.
Thank you.
You sure?
We can always come back.
Okay. We started out tonight with an invitation to love your neighbor. And we listened to all of the presenters tonight, and I was struck by A, the abundance of intelligence, and B, the amount of love that you all bring into this job. A couple other things that came up. the almost begging for parents to be involved, to help your kids, to get this stuff going down the road. Teachers are all incredible people, and I respect everything that they do, but we gotta have the parents getting those kids across the finish line. I've spoken about civil discord several times, and Sandy and I look at the world differently, but she has never said an unkind word to me ever, no matter how far apart we were ideologically in anything. So thank you for all of that. Cedar, I got to speak at Cedar, and what a great bunch of kids. I had a lot of fun. I made them all list out their questions ahead of time so we wouldn't just be staring at each other waiting for somebody to ask something. It was fun. Thank you. I did appreciate that. And just, we got good things going on. So thank you, everybody, for your work.
I want to say thank you too. Wonderful presentations tonight, from the school improvement plans to the literacy program. Just really appreciate all of the work that's being done. It's not easy. And in that vein too, really appreciate all of the teachers who are staying late tonight and will be Thursday night, and making special accommodations for people like me that have school board meetings and couldn't do it tonight and have volleyball late Thursday night that I want to watch. So there's special conferences going on, and I know teachers bend over backwards to do things like that, and their staff do, and it is very much appreciated because there's a lot of families and a lot of kids, and that's reaching a lot of people. So just really appreciate all of the time that people are taking. And speaking of time, for me with Sandy, I got on the school board 8 years ago, and Sandy was on that board and really has remained just a big figure for me on the time that I've been on the school board. We've been through a lot of things. We were in a small room wondering whether or not our community would pass a big bond, but feeling the need to step forward and do that because of the needs. And then we were able to pass that. We were able to together watch the building of all of those buildings, and then we got to go through COVID together. And that was some uncharted territory that I hope we never have to go back to. But then the coming back and all of the exciting things that are happening, and a new superintendent. You know, we were on a board that had some pretty consistent members for a while, and I do remember both Sally Carr and Sally Brownfield said that as soon as they stepped down, they were busy with a lot of other things. So really do appreciate all of the time and the meetings. I know, because I've been at many of them with you. I wasn't there for 1 year prior, but you've stood your ground on some pretty contentious issues like the pool. And I always admired you for that, and I've very much admired your perspective and how much you and your husband have done in this community. So I appreciate all of the time that you have spent, because it's been a lot, and you've done great work while you've been here. So thank you very much for that. I will also just do one quick shout out for our boys tennis. I think they have been doing some amazing things, and they're moving on to districts. And I think, Carla, you were saying maybe that's the first time that somebody might, or no, it's not the first time for districts. Yeah, and they're #1 right now, and our girls swim team is doing amazing. And I know that all of the sports, whether it's volleyball, soccer, girls soccer, and football, there's a lot of kids out there doing some great work that's been a lot of fun to watch. And speaking of principals spending a lot of extra time, I see many of you at the football games, and Bruce even got to stand in and saw a piece off of the log. So it was pretty fun to watch. Anyway, thank you all for everything. We do not have, I don't believe we have, no exempt session. So at this point, Sandy, you could make a motion to adjourn.
I have one more motion
Unless
to
you would like to make any comments yourself.
I move that we adjourn.
Is there a
I'll second that.
Or we could just stay in the meeting
Yeah.
all night. All right, it's been moved and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say no.
Nope.
All right, hearing none. Thank you very much. Our meeting's adjourned. If we can stick around to sign some paperwork really quick.